because it's not something we read in books, because or everybody talks about innovation. It has it has transformed nations. It has given power to poor nations, poor individuals, poor communities, struggling communities. So in the first part of the presentation, I'll basically go back to the history and tell you why there is a need to discuss innovations. Let me begin with Professor McCloskey. McCloskey, she is one of the wonderful, fantastic economic historian. She has written a book, Bourgeois Dignity. And in that Bourgeois Dignity, she tells us that innovation is probably the biggest story of past 200 years. And she's arguing that, there have been various explanations, for example, put across by Adam Smith and Karl Marx about why some nations become suddenly rich and some nations become very poor. So there must be something, humans have, common capabilities. We share similar capacities, but then you have some countries that are exceptionally doing well and some countries that are lagging behind. And McCloskey tells us that it's precisely innovation which has given power to the poor nations, and the nations which are struggling, historians would tell us. In fact, Germany, which is one of the leading technological country on earth, in 1810 they could not find a single screw maker. And for example, America, United States of America, which is right now the leading economy on earth. In fact, when it comes to technology, United States of America is seen as #1 country on earth. By 1850s, the GDP was lesser than that of present-day Kashmir. By the way, we were more richer in terms of GDP per capita in 1850 than United States of America. And Belgium, again, one of the leading technological advanced country, by 1820, they were basically poaching innovators. They were going to England and they were arresting innovators, bribing innovators, so that they will go back to Europe and Belgium and will contribute to the Belgian economy. And then this is the state of the non-European countries. The non-European countries, precisely China, Japan, Korea, India, China, they were seen as, United States of wild men. Because Europeans, they thought that, these non-European countries, they don't know science, they don't know technology, and they were seen as savage people, poor people living in these countries. For example, in 1930, not very bad, in 1930s, Woodrow Wilson was president of America, and he decided that the amount of poverty in China was such that China should, he recommended in the 50s, they renamed a town as USA so that its exports might bear the label made in USA. Because the products which are coming from Japan after World War II, they were shoddy, there was no quality, and the technical efficiency was very, very poor. And that's why they renamed a whole district as USA, so that whatever manufacturing will come from that particular district will have the label of made in USA. And South Korea, by the way, was one of the poorest countries on the planet. In 1960s, its per capita GDP was $158, slightly less than that of Ghana. The country had no natural resources, no geographic advantage, a largely illiterate population, and an infrastructure that had been better during the war. But then, and for example, another story, in 1820, for all of humanity's history until 1820, nobody went faster than the speed of galloping horse, because horse was considered the fastest locomotive on earth in 1820. And now we have these recent disasters. For example, COVID-19, we have seen people gasping for air. There were no medical devices. We have seen people dying on roads. And then we have the other threats, for example, climate change and, the SDGs, global poverty and all that. But the question is, this is a new prosperous world. I showed you the pictures of the America, Belgium, China, South Korea in 18th century, 19th century, in fact, in the 20th century. But look, this is the new world in front of you. You have all prosperity everywhere. Big cities are coming up. A lot of money is there. A lot of new technology is there. And, lifespan of people have also enhanced drastically. Now, the question is, what led to this transformation of this new world? From poor countries to rich countries suddenly, and from rich countries to poor countries suddenly, what exactly, is going, what basically is the motivator behind this transformation? For example, they started with Industrial Revolution of 18th century in England. And they told us that it were the inventions, certain inventions and technological innovations which transformed England. For example, James Hargreaves, he invented the spinning wheel. And what this spinning wheel did was it mechanized the whole process of, spinning the thread. And then we have another innovator, James Watt. He improved Newcomen engine, and it was followed by steam transformation, steam revolution in England. And in America, we have this Isaac M. Singer. He invented this sewing machine, and this sewing machine it created a contagious effect in the United States of America, and many people they started imitating other innovators, and as a result there was a bottom of revolution of innovations. And because of these innovations, the output drastically enhanced. Once they were able to sell more products, they selling more products gave them more money, and with that money they colonized not only Asia but other parts of the world. And it was precisely because of these technological revolution which emerged first in England, then was copied by America, France, Belgium, and then later on in China and Korea. For example, you have seen this Samsung. We have been using Samsung mobile phone, its refrigerators and other technologies which come from Samsung. Initially, Samsung was selling dried fish in South Korea. But because of innovations, market creating innovations, it emerged as the world's leading ICT company. And now, the same is true with Sony. Sony was initially selling flood electric blankets that would often caught fire. And KIA, that's another car manufacturing company, they started as a bicycling company. And as far as I was pointing out, this what is innovation? I mentioned about COVID-19. You have seen the vaccine. It's again now everybody is talking about vaccine, so it's an outcome of knowledge, and we see it as a successful innovation in our times. Now, how this innovation basically, led to this kind of prosperity, this kind of virtuous cycle of prosperity and growth and development. Innovations which started in England, they basically created a virtuous cycle of growth and development. Because when you have one successful story in England, then America and United States of America, France, Belgium, and its neighboring countries, for example, Denmark, they started learning from England that if England can have this innovation, technological innovation, if with technological innovation they can have more wealth, why can't we try innovation? Why can't we encourage innovation? That's why Belgium, they went to the England and they started bribing the innovators of England. And not only bribed, they arrested some of the innovators from England and they took them to Belgium so that they will create the same kind of revolution which England witnessed in the beginning of 19th and 18th century. And this contagious effect of inventions led to regional development, first in England, then its neighboring countries. And how was this possible? Because these market creating innovators, they started a fire. And then the government, they started fanning the flames which were emerging out of these innovators. Now, part second of my presentation is, what is this innovation? Everybody talks about innovation, and there's a lot of ambiguity surrounding innovation because we don't know what's innovation, why should we discuss innovation, what types of innovations are there. So I'll try to discuss that part here. Innovation, if you look into the economic scholarship on innovation, then, the most of the literature revolves around new ideas, new products which will create economic value. But we have, over the period of, from last 1 decade, there is an alternative scholarship of innovation, which has somehow, tried to present an alternative definition of innovation. We are saying that market is not always important, profit is not always important, or, earning a lot of wealth is not always important. Innovation could be anything new. I mean, newness is very important, which creates value. Value could be environmental value. For example, if you are creating a process, a product, a new organization, which takes care of the environment, which reduces pollution, which ensures sustainability, that also becomes innovation. But if you have a new product, that creates economic value, environmental value, that also becomes innovation. For example, Apple phone, that's an innovation because it's generating a lot of economic value. Or you can have a new organization. For example, we have seen new food outlets in Kashmir, which are new. We haven't seen these kind of outlets in the past. And they're also generating jobs, wealth creation. They also fit in the definition of innovation. And the two, these pictures which I have presented here, one is Pfizer, the vaccine which comes from Pfizer, or These new products, they can come from university where a lot of research is required, where a lot of resources are needed, where a lot of, where you need a lot of money to create new products. So they become formal innovations. But at the same time, you can have informal innovations where no research is required. Probably research is required at a local level, but not, you don't require billions of dollars. For example, this ventilator, it was created from Afghanistan. There were three school-going girls. They created a ventilator using old car parts. So they also created some value. And these innovators, ventilators, were quickly shifted to the hospitals. So, of course, this also fits in the definition of innovation. Now, another part is who could be an innovator? There is a very popular narrative that you need to be an engineer to be an innovator, or you need to be a university grad to be an innovator, or you need a college degree to be an innovator, or you need a lot of money to be an innovator. It's not true. If you look at James Watt, he improved on the Newcomen engine, and there was a complete revolution of steam engine. Then the first train, which was powered by steam, was introduced in England, and train helped Britain transport goods from one place to another place. And it was because of this innovation, England was able to accumulate a lot of wealth, because they also expropriated resources from the colonies and they shifted back to England. And in 1824, we have the concept of thermodynamics, which basically the steam engine, which was invented by school dropouts. Steam engine, James Watt was not a university professor. He had no idea of physics. Or Newcomen, who in 1712, he invented this engine of extracting water from coal mines. He had no idea of universities, no idea of physics, no idea of thermodynamics, because that time there was nothing called thermodynamics. It was only after 100 years that the concept of thermodynamics was introduced. So to say that you need basic science for breakthrough innovation is not always correct. Or to say that you need to be a university professor, or you need to be a physics professor, engineer professor, or a university grad is not, backed in the innovation scholarship that you can be best innovator if you have a university degree. Or look at the other example, the popular example, of Wright brothers and Professor Samuel Langley. Samuel Langley, he was professor of University of Petersburg from 1864 till 1891. He was best in physics, a wonderful mathematician. And he had the idea of inventing first flying machine, first aeroplane. He approached the government of America that he's a professor at University of Petersburg. He knows physics, he knows aerodynamics, and he has the idea of creating the first flying machine. And he researched for 40 to 50 years, but he failed in creating the first flying machine. Against Professor Samuel Langley, there were two brothers, Wright brothers, we famously know them. They were not university professors. They had not read physics. They don't know the principles of aerodynamics. And it were they who first created, they were bicycle mechanists. They created the first flying machine in 1903. And this again tells us that it's not always plays its own part. It has its own significance. It basically gives you more dexterity. You understand concepts clearly. But it's always when we put some barriers to say that you need to have this degree, or you need to be financially well off, or you need to graduate from MIT or Harvard, only then you can invent new things. It's not always true. And now the other part of my presentation is enemies of innovation. Like, what are the factors which kill new ideas, which kill, which dampen innovators' pursuit in taking their ideas to market, or in basically, taking their projects forward. I have more stories for you. When these people, Wright brothers, invented the aeroplane, nobody was able to trust them. They thought that they are basically bicycle mechanists, and bicycle mechanists cannot invent a flying machine. And nobody was ready to accept it, because you have Samuel Langley. He was professor of a top university in America. He got huge grant from government of America. He failed to create the flying machine. And then suddenly there was a news that Wright brothers, who fixed bicycles, they invented the first flying machine. And that's why, there were some top newspapers. For example, Paris Herald, they called them as flyers or liars in 1906. In fact, Scientific America in 1906 wrote an article titled "The Wright Aeroplane at its Fabulous Performances," because nobody was ready to accept that school dropouts or people who have no understanding of science, aerodynamics, physics can invent new innovations. And there was so much of criticism against Wright brothers, that they had to migrate from America to France. And it was only in France that they became wealthy and they created many flying machines. Same is true with the inventor of diesel engine. We use diesel cars, and you see, billions around the millions around the people, if not billions, are using diesel engine. The inventor of diesel engine, he had to commit suicide because the kind of pressures, challenges which were created around him, he was completely lost, or he felt so helplessness that he ended in committing suicide. And in his suicide note, he wrote that the introduction of invention is time fraught with combating stupidity and jealousy, inertia and venom. So what are the factors which basically kill innovation? I'll give an example of coffee. We drink coffee. Coffee was first invented in Ethiopia, then it reached Yemen and Saudi Arabia. Muslims were first to drink coffee. They would call it kahwa because they had to memorize Quran, so they had to stay awake for longer hours. And coffee was something which was giving them, it was a refreshing drink. But when coffee reached the Ottoman Empire, many coffee shops started coming up. And in the coffee shops, you have seen many coffee shops in Srinagar city or in other towns of Kashmir. People usually go to coffee shops, they talk politics, they talk state, they talk their personal life, they discuss everything. It's a kind of gossip place. And same was true in Ottoman. And from Ottoman, coffee got transmitted to Europe. When coffee reached Europe, in coffee shops, the people who would usually go to the coffee shops, they would talk about church. They would discuss the hegemony of the church. They would discuss science, and they would discuss the hegemony of the state, the monarchy. And when the heads of the state got to know that the people who go to coffee shops, they discuss and they are making plans against the state, against the church, they started banning coffee. And Oxford University, one of the most enlightened university on earth, and Cambridge University, they had to issue an order banning coffee shops in Europe. And the matter of coffee, it reached to the Pope, and Pope issued a death sentence against coffee, stating that anyone who drinks coffee turns rebel. Now, why was coffee banned? Coffee was banned because it led to coffee shops. And why coffee shops were banned is because, it was hitting the interests of certain interest groups. For example, people going to the coffee shops, they would talk about church, or people going to, the coffee shops would talk about state. And when state and church, they started feeling insecure, they started banning technology. And same is true with refrigerator. When refrigerator was for the first time introduced, it was basically against an industry which was selling ice. So the industry which was selling ice, when they saw that there is a technology, it's going to erode their business, it's going to hit their interests, they started inventing stupid excuses against refrigerator. For example, they would go wherever they would see that there is a refrigerator inside the building, they would set the building on fire. And then the next day they would tell, oh, it was because of refrigerator. And many other excuses that it's leading to cancer, the items you keep in the refrigerator, they're not good for health, it will invent new diseases. So these kind of reasons and excuses were invented around that particular technology. But, the history of Europe, but now you see Lavazza is a European company from Italy. They sell more than 1 billion cups of coffee a day. And then look at other coffee shops, it's more than 2 billion cups of coffee are sold every day. And refrigerator, almost every different parts of the world failed to take his technology to the department, the government of department, the industries department of J&K government, they filed a case against this innovator, and he had to spend 4 days in central jail of Kashmir. So, those patented laureates of Kashmir, they suddenly became jailed innovators different parts of the world. We organized a COVID innovation competition in Kashmir, and more than 200 ideas were submitted to our innovation challenge. And there were many promises made by the state for those innovators. After a year, COVID is almost ending. These innovators are still waiting for those incentives and awards which are promised to them by the government. So when you create faulty incentives, when you create faulty institutions, and when you do not have more innovation, when you have a famine of innovations, you ultimately end up becoming a poor country. You can have, resources, but those resources won't last longer. They won't be sustainable. So if you don't have a sustainable model of growth or innovation or development, you're not going to last longer. And now the part third of my presentation is, with this part, I'll also end, how to convert innovation famine into innovation feast. Now, you in Kashmir, you don't have many innovations. We don't have Apple-like innovators from Kashmir, or we don't have big innovators, or any innovator which will be proud of collectively that he belongs to Kashmir, or this thing is invented in Kashmir. We have a lot of innovations which have been documented by Gyan Cell Grassroots Innovation Augmentation Network, and one of my friends, Sayyid Nadeem, I think he's also attending this presentation. They have documented more than 10,000 innovations from different regions of Kashmir. They have the huge database of inventions from Kashmir. But the problem is we don't have a successful case which we will be collectively proud of. This is something which has been invented in Kashmir and it's being used in America, or it is being used in China, or it's being used in other parts of the country. The way we use Chinese-made products or American-made products or other products made from different parts of the world. Now, what are the reasons and how to convert innovation famine into innovation feast? The first excuse which we give to different people is that, Kashmir is a conflict hit state. We have been witnessing armed conflict from last 20, 30 years. So, it has destroyed our universities. It has destroyed our thinking capacity. We can't think properly. So that's why we don't invent new things. But there is a movie which was, which hit theaters in 1993. The title of the movie is Third Man. And the third man, there is a dialogue which takes place between Orson Welles and his co-actor. And he tells in his movie that in Italy, for 30 years, under the Borgias, they had warfare, terror, murder, and bloodshed. But they produced Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and the Renaissance. This Renaissance was possible in Italy, and the time when there were warfares, they were killing each other, there was terror, there was conflict, and within that conflict, they were able to create a culture of new thinking. And the popular period of Renaissance, it emerged in England in that period. In comparison to England, look at Switzerland. Switzerland, they had brotherly love, they had 500 years of democracy and peace. And what did they produce? They produced a cuckoo clock, a small clock, which was possible in Switzerland after having 500 years of peace. I'm not saying that you need conflict or you need to kill each other so that you'll be more innovative. But what I'm saying is that, if there are some issues, if there are some problems, inventions emerge out of necessities. That old cliche that necessity is the mother of invention. If there are not new things, because there are some problems we're battling, so taking a detour and avoiding a problem and creating a solution of the problem is the first rule in the whole process of innovations. If you're facing a problem, create a solution, and conflict gives you an advantage that you can probably create many things, you can take detours, and with that you can have many new products. And look at the other case, why we do not have innovations is, probably because we do not have right institutions. Institutions, I mean, the award systems, the recognitions which we give to our innovators, our education system, the punctuality we reflect, both from the teachers as well as from the students, the sincerity which we show in the class, and the way we interact with our neighbors, with our communities, that also has a strong bearing on the process of creating new things. I'll give an example. When Galileo, he invented a telescope in Europe on 1609, and then there was Thomas Roe. He was ambassador of Europe to Mughal Empire and Ottoman Empire. When he came to India, he met Jahangir. And then, in the conversation, to Jahangir ne usko bola ki what have you invented? Because जब थॉमस रो इंडिया आया था, when we had Mughal period and Ottoman, they were considered the richest empires on earth, in fact, as well. In fact, Ottoman Empire, they issued an order that Turkey people and Ottoman people, they should not interact with the Europeans. There should be no knowledge and trade relationship between Turkey, Ottomans, and the Europeans, because Turkey people, the Ottoman people, they thought that Europeans are the second-class citizens, and second-class citizens cannot enter into any kind of knowledge or innovation collaboration with Europe, because with Ottoman Empire was that time the richest empire. Same is true with Mughal Empire. It was one of the splendid and richest empire. When Thomas Roe came to India, he gifted this telescope to Jahangir, because when he saw big forts like Agra, Delhi fort, he was baffled. He thought that these people, they will leapfrog in this space technology. With the telescope, which I am gifting to Jahangir, probably they will do more research into it, they will add more things to it, and they won't only be able to invent more things related to lens, but they probably will end up exploring more celestial bodies. After 2 years, when he returned back to Mughal Empire, he was shocked to see that the telescope which he had gifted to Jahangir was converted into a spyglass. People in Ottoman and Mughal Empire, they would spy each other's rooms. They were not able to, explore, celestial bodies, planets, or the solar system. Instead of that, they converted the telescope which was given to them for spying each other. And same is true, when this glass was invented, it got diffused to different parts of the world. It reached India, it reached Mughal, Aztec, and other places of the world. In Europe, they invented lens. And with the lens, they invented telescope and also microscope. And with the help of microscope, they discovered a whole world of germs, microorganisms. Now imagine COVID-19 without COVID-19 vaccine without microscope. It was impossible, because first you had to identify the microscope, the germ or the virus which is leading to coronavirus. That you can do only with the help of microscope. And when this glass was invented, it were the Europeans first who started inventing lens, and with the lens they invented telescope and microscope. But when the same glass reached to different parts of the world, like India or some other place like Ottoman, what we did was, the best we could think of was inventing bangles. We started manufacturing bangles, and we started inventing spyglasses. So this is how, when you have faulty institutions, when you cannot think for future, when you cannot plan for future, then even if you have access to technology, even if you have access to new knowledge, you probably fail to make use of the technologies and the knowledge which is in front of you. And now look at what happened with Ottoman and Mughal Empire. There is no trace of Mughal Empire except the Taj Mahal and those forts. Same is true with Ottomans. They can't be seen anywhere except that Portugal serial. But Europeans are still dominating the world. They are giving us new technology. They are every day giving us new inventions. It's precisely because they have invented institutions which nurture new innovations, which are pro-innovations, and which are pro-new knowledge, which encourage critical thinking, they encourage criticality, they have skills of communication, and they know how to collaborate with each other. And that's why new innovations come from that place. And now why we precisely do not invent. I have, in 2 years back, I wrote an article for Greater Kashmir. The article title is, you can read it, The Allegory of Caves, from Athens to Kufara. I think within 5 to 6 minutes, I'll finish my presentation. So what this article tells us, there are 2 caves. I had been to Athens a few years back, and at Athens, I had a chance to visit the places where Plato and Aristotle were teaching their students. That was probably the first university on earth when humans first started talking about knowledge, philosophy, logic. So it was Aristotle when he set up Lyceum. Socrates, he was the first philosopher. He was killed because he was telling people in Athens, in Greece, that you should, be able to differentiate what's right and what's wrong, what's science, what is a dogma. So people, they didn't like his philosophy because he was talking against church, and they hanged him. They asked him to drink hemlock, and he died. In response to that, his student Plato, he wrote a story defining the states of Athens. Athens में कैसे लोग रहते हैं, and what reasons led to the killing of his teacher Socrates. तो उसने एक poem लिखी. उसने कहा कि आप imagine करें एक गुफा. This is a gufa, this is a cave, and Plato is telling us that you imagine it's allegory, ये fiction है, it's not something which is a reality. तो उसने एक story लिखी थी, 2400 साल पुरानी इस कहानी है ये. उसने कहा आप imagine करें आप एक गुफा है, और गुफा में 5 newly born babies, they were taken and they were chained, they were put into the cave, and in the cave they were chained. The only thing they could see was the dead end of the cave. तो ये बच्चे न्यूली बॉर्न बेबीज दे वर चैंड इन द केव, उनको वहीं पे खाना वाना सब दिया गया था, एंड दे स्टार्टेड ग्रोइंग इनसाइड द केव. दे थॉट दैट्स लाइफ, दे थॉट दैट दिस केव इज होल लाइफ, एंड दे डेवलप्ड देयर ओन लैंग्वेज, देयर ओन इंटरप्रिटेशन ऑफ द वर्ल्ड अबाउट द केव, एंड दे हैड देयर ओन ग्रामर. बराबर वो 30 साल तक उस केव में रहे. एंड वन डे सडनली वन पर्सन वॉज एबल टू ब्रेक द चेन्स. वो केव से बाहर आ गया. जैसे वो केव से बाहर आया, so he saw a completely new world. He saw there was light, there were animals, there were humans moving from place to place, and he was shocked. उसने कहा, the life we are living inside cave is not actually the real life. The real life is outside the cave. So he rushed back to the cave. उसने अपने दोस्तों को कहा कि this is not life. This is a cave. There is no light. We can't see anything. The real life is outside the cave. But the people, जो उसके बाकी colleagues थे, who were also chained, they thought that this guy has turned mad, because from the last 30 years we haven't seen light, we haven't seen anything, and this guy suddenly comes to us and he tells us some new story. So they thought he has turned mad, and they ganged up and they killed him. This was the story which was written by Plato 2400 years back. इसमें क्या the only thing we get from this cave was people were not ready to go outside the cave. ये cave से बाहर आने से बहुत डरते थे, and they thought that he is turned mad, so there's no point going outside the cave. But there is another cave. It's in Kufara. I come from Kufara, so this cave is just 15 kilometers from my house. ये कोई story नहीं है, कहानी नहीं है, but this cave is exactly there. अगर आप आज अभी now this is trending on Twitter. If you are on Twitter, you can see some politicians and policymakers have gone to Klarus, and they have taken the pictures, and they are trying to explore this cave. अब इस Klarus को Klarus क्यों बोलते हैं? Because there is a narrative that if you enter into this cave, you can see the gates. You will probably, this is a subterranean tunnel from Kashmir to Russia. If you have to go to Moscow, go to Kufara, enter into the caves, and the next is you will get out at Moscow. फिर अगर आप वहाँ पे लोगों को बोलेंगे कि यहाँ से कुफारा से कोई मॉस्को गया है या कश्मीर से कोई मॉस्को गया है, तो दे विल टेल यू यस 3 teams दे ट्राई टू गो टू मॉस्को. एक टीम जैसे वो गुफा में चले गए तो देयर वाज अ ह्यूज ओशन इन फ्रंट ऑफ देम, दे रिटर्न बैक. दूसरी टीम दे डिसअपियर्ड, और तीसरी टीम उनका लैंटर्न का तेल खत्म है, एंड वी हैड नो स्टेट्स अबाउट दैट थर्ड टीम. इतना पॉपुलर नैरेटिव है इस केव का, गांव का नाम ही रखा गया है कलारूस. मीन्स it's Rus means Russia, and Killa means fort, so it's linked to Russia. This narrative is there from the last 300-400 years till last year. Few of my friends from America, they were here, they went to Klarus, they were cave explorers. Unne kaha we will try to go to Russia. So we discussed everything with them, and you can see they had all these lights, proper suits, and they thought probably it's a long journey. Going from Kufara to Russia will take a lot of time, so they were fully prepared. जैसे वो गुफा के अंदर चले गए, after 10 minutes they returned back, saying that this cave is not going to Russia. It's basically a 15 feet long tunnel, and there is the dead end. The problem is we have never been so daring that we will go inside and see whether this cave is really going to Russia or it's not going to Russia. Now, अब हमारे पास 2 गुफा है. एक प्लेटो की केव है जहाँ पे लोग डरते थे गुफा से बाहर आना, और दूसरी कुफारा की केव है जहाँ पे कश्मीर के लोग डरते थे गुफा के अंदर जाना. So now, if you feel threatened with uncertainty, if you feel threatened with future, you won't be able to take risks. तो फिर what will happen to us? We will end up as cave people. हम उसी गुफा में रहेंगे, and we will develop our own interpretation of the world, thinking that Kashmir is the center of the whole world. Whatever we produce, that is the best. Kashmir University and Islamia College are the best college of the world, so that will be our interpretation, and as a result, we won't be able to produce anything, and we will die like cave people. Now, if you want to venture into new areas, then you have to embrace uncertainty. You have to explore the unknowns. You have to explore new waters, the way Columbus did. Columbus was the first to explore the unknown, waters of Atlantic Ocean. And as a result, he ended up discovering Aztec, Argentina, today's Argentina and Mexico, and he brought a lot of gold back to Spain. Even Spain today, they are getting the dividends of the voyage, which was undertaken by Columbus in 15th century. So what I'm trying to say is, when we talk about innovations, you should not fear future, that if we invest here, we probably fail. Or if we have this technology, we end up as disasters. No, you should try, you should put your resources and attempts in creating new things. And now, the other slide is telling us that we should plan for 1,000 years. I'll give an example. This is precisely for our teachers who are attending this presentation, that, I have this picture of two universities. One was the first university on earth. It's called Al-Qarawin. It was set up in Morocco. She is a Muslim lady, Fatima Al-Firi. She was the first to set up the first university which was fully and dedicated towards mathematics, logic, reason, and philosophy. And after 200 years, Oxford University was set up as a church missionary school in England. And you now see, the school which was fully dedicated for maths and philosophy, Al-Qarawin, it has the first university. UNESCO has declared it as the first university. This first university, इसका अगर आप trajectory देखें, it started as a university and now it's a small madrasa in Morocco. While as the church school, which started in England as a small missionary school, is now world's top university. Why? Because, sustainability is very important. If you fail to create the incentives I was talking about, if you fail to create the award system, if you fail to invest for future, if you fail to, add dexterity to your professions, you probably can have a job. Maybe you will be able to feed your kids. Maybe you will be able to feed your family, but you won't be able to contribute to the society. And when our teachers, when our students, they fail to contribute to the society or to community, then those societies and communities, they won't last longer. Their lifespan, the shelf life is reduced. And that's why we see Morocco, the first country, or the Islamic countries, they were the first to have these kind of universities. If you look at the golden age of Islam, physics, mathematics, algebra, they were the best countries who were doing it. And Europeans were basically learning from them, physics, chemistry. But now, Muslim countries are nowhere there when it comes to knowledge or innovations, because they failed to create the incentives which are needed for new knowledge and innovations. And this is the last part of the presentation, the last slide. How to convert this innovation famine into innovation feast. There are some points. The first for our students who are attending this presentation is that, you need to look for meaning, not money. When you're talking about innovations, when you're talking about new knowledge, or when you're going to the university, you need to have a meaning for life. Like, why are you going to college? What are you going to contribute? Or when you go to innovations, why are you going to invent new things? What are you going to contribute to the people around you, to the communities around you? For example, Apple, when they were the first who started inventing these desktops, they were basically trying to democratize the big technology. Because when Apple ne computer banana shuru kiya, only limited people, limited organizations, few countries were able to have big computers. But Apple, they thought of democratizing the whole computing process, and they had this thing in mind that we need to give access of computer to the common man. And they started this journey with a meaning. And when someone starts the journey with a meaning, money will follow. And now Apple has more money than America, England, Australia combined. The treasuries these three countries have, the more money is with Apple. And the second is, we need to keep our brains in the classroom and eyes on the field. As I pointed out, innovation will not always come from classrooms. Physics is very important. Mathematics is very important. Business is very important. Commerce is very important. But innovation also comes from outside university fortified spaces. You can have many, as I pointed out, the Gyan database or the innovators. I know from Kashmir from the last 2 decades, there are brilliant innovators from Kashmir. They have never been to school. They have never been to college. They have no idea of this whole terminology, innovation, development, and growth. But they have wonderful ideas and wonderful prototypes. So it's good for our teachers as well as students to understand and acknowledge the propositional knowledge which is there outside the university. Look at the shawl industry, the kind of innovations which come from that industry. It's basically in the vicinity of the Islamic College. So it will be good for the faculty to learn from the artisans and take artisans to the college so that they will learn from the university design department and computer department. This is what's happening in China, and this is what's happening at MIT. The logo of MIT is Mans at Mans, means whatever knowledge you produce using your brains, you should be able to utilize it using your hands. तो hands अब तभी use करेंगे when you go to the field. So when you go to the field, you will have exposure to the new knowledge, the farmer's knowledge, the artisan's knowledge, the common man's knowledge. That's very important. And the third is we need to explore new paradigms. We need to jump the dominant curve. When we think of innovations, always think of creating something radical, something revolutionary. There have been many incremental innovation. For example, one person will set up a coffee shop, the next person comes and he also sets up a coffee shop. And third person with some incremental improvement, he adds to the coffee shop. The fourth one adds to the coffee shop. That is true. But we should always think of jumping the curve, jumping the dominant curve. For example, we have seen, as I pointed out, the ice industry. When people were dealing with ice industry, they were selling ice cubes to the whole of the world. In fact, East India Company, they were getting ice from Europe and they were selling elites of India in 17th century. But then there were the people who invented refrigerator. They jumped the curve. They did not improve ice industry. There were a lot of innovations happening in ice industry, but the inventor who thought of creating a refrigerator, it was completely digression. He jumped the curve and he invented a new technology. So we should always think of radical and revolutionary ideas. We should not go with the flow. You should digress from the flow and create a new thing. And the fourth is, we need to create appropriate incentives. This is true of our teachers, our policymakers, our government officials. Today morning I had an argument with an innovator. We have been, convincing policymakers, bureaucrats, politicians that we need to create incentives for our innovators. It's a slow process. It will take a lot of time. So we should not be dependent on the government. We should not wait for the government that they'll give you money only, then you will invent. You should invent things and then try selling your ideas. The whole world, if there is some merit in your idea, there will be the world for you to take your ideas to the market. Recently, two days back, one innovator I profiled in my book Unsung Innovators of Kashmir in 2009. That time she had invented a solution for polythene, and few days back she got a contract where she got royalty of 20 lakh rupees from a Mumbai-based enterprise. She had to wait for 10 years. In fact, the inventor of shaving blade, he had to wait for 15 years to take that shaving blade to the market. So you need to have patience. Patience is very important. But at the same time, we need to also, create appropriate regime for these innovations, and we need to look for incentives for our innovators. And the last one would be to create breakthroughs out of our backwardness. We are financially backward. We have not much resources. Our universities are not top universities of the world, but we need to learn to create breakthrough ideas from our backwardness. This is what China has done. In 1930, as I pointed out, America decided to put China under the international trusteeship. And now China is supporting whole world with innovations, and they're creating new innovation models which whole world is proud of. And that is how, they have learned from the existing technologies and they created breakthroughs and they leapfrog into new areas. And last one is we need to create conflict of ideas and kill democracy of stagnation. If we are stagnant, if we won't invent, if there is peace that, okay, let's not do anything, just eat food, sleep, and go to college, come back, write exam, this is a stagnant life. If you want to break this stagnant life, you need to go with some new ideas. You need to try something new in your life. And once you try something new in your life, I'm sure, there is profit after investing in uncertainty. So I'll end here. Thank you very much. If you have any question or anything, my WhatsApp number is there. My email is also there. You can write to my email. You can WhatsApp me. So I'll end here. If you have any questions, we'll take it up next. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheikh Fayaz, for your exhaustive and very enthusiastic speech. I am really sure that my students will definitely be, they have taken a word, they have taken a pledge to start and think out of box. That is what is take away from your all this beautiful and wonderful speech. So definitely our students will be now somewhere sensitized about why should they start and how should they start. They have to think beyond box, they have to think beyond the normal. That is what entrepreneurship is. That is what actually this startup is all about. You have to face all the challenges, you have to be ready for all the failures, so then only you can achieve success somewhere. You talked about so many successful entrepreneurs who have faced, who have not been able to enter into the markets for so long, for decades together. But the main aim, the main, the ingredient of a successful entrepreneur is that he has to be foresighted. He has to have that total commitment towards his job. Then only he can actually see the success. Thank you so much for your wonderful speech. So I now request our student. This is really a proud privilege that we are joined by our student, one of the budding entrepreneurs of our state, Sheikh Inayatullah, who will share his experience, how he started, how he came up with the idea, and now what's he doing, so that our students are benefited and they are sensitized and motivated to start their own enterprises and come up with new ideas which can be worked on, which can be hand-holded by our incubation center. Over to you, Inayat.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम
Walaikum assalam.
Welcome, Salam.
वालेकुम अस्सलाम जी दिस इज इनायत हियर आई थिंक मैम ने काफ़ी मेरा इंट्रोडक्शन दे दिया so no need of any more introduction to bore you people. I would directly come to the topic. I think a lot of things have already been discussed. I believe, are you people comfortable in Kashmiri? Students, can you speak, please? Okay, I think it's okay. They are not able to speak.
Yes, sir.
Okay, are you comfortable in Kashmiri? I want to communicate the best and the maximum what I can.
Yes, sir.
Most of the students are well versed with 3 languages: English, Urdu,
sir.
and Kashmiri. So you can use.
Inayat sir, you can speak in Urdu or Kashmiri, no problem.
No issues.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. कि देखिए मुझसे जो जब ये प्रोग्राम का डिस्कशन इसी गो कि आई वाज टोल्ड कि यार ऐसे प्रोग्राम है तो यू हैव टू कम, सो आई वाज वेरी मच हैप्पी दैट आई एम गोइंग टू बी काइंड ऑफ अ स्पीकर इन माय ओन कॉलेज, जहाँ पे मैं एक बच्चा था, स्टूडेंट था, आई मीन टू से. सो entrepreneurship, innovation, ये चीज़ जो कशी linked. तो बे वनो तो ये कशी in this context में बिल्कुल कैसान I want to make my participation in the context of the Kashmiri situation we have.
Excuse me, Inayat sir, mic आपकी आवाज साफ नहीं आ रही है. आवाज.
Hello.
Inayat, you can raise the volume of
आपका
your
ऑडियो सही नहीं है, Inayat साहब. Please check mic.
Hello.
हाँ जी, ठीक है.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah, now you're audible.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
जी which was मैं ये वालन तो आई सारनी particularly students is that I'm a student of Islamia college. I'm sorry, I'm so used to English that I'm still even thinking of speaking in Kashmiri. I'm getting some English sentences. So but still
Please go ahead.
बट छुस Islamia college का alumni में छु graduation कोरमुत M.Ped B.Com. पत करो मैं M.Com कश्मीर यूनिवर्सिटी, और कश्मीर यूनिवर्सिटी में क्या गो अख मर्सी कोर एक NGO अख USH तिमो कोर बिजनेस प्लान कंपटीशन ऑर्गेनाइज MBA लड़कन खतर न कि M.Com लड़कन खतर. सिंस बोस वारिया आसान इंटरेस्टेड हर कुछ चीजस में ये टॉपर गसान उस. सो अब मैं वुच ये अति ये बैनर लगित मर्सी कोर बिजनेस प्लान कंपटीशन खुद उसमें वारिया सोशल वर्क तु कोरमुत ओवर ताम, काफी सोशल वर्क उस में कोरमुत. हंग तमंग केन प्रॉब्लमन इश्यूजन सनान तिम करान सॉल्व, पुलिस सत गसान, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशनस निश गसान, पॉलिटिशियन निश गसान, प्रेसस निश गसान. मे उसी बड़ जज्ब कि बह करा सारी इश्यूज सॉल्व दुनिया. आई एम टेलिंग यू द ट्रुथ. पद मे बिजनेस प्लान कंपटीशन वो अक वो पे हेल्प तरान फंड करनस पे अगर तुम कह असल प्रोग्राम या कह प्रोजेक्ट आ मे वन ये मज अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट और मे पे सूचमुत. तो मे बासान हेको प्रोजेक्ट हेक बह दिथ ये पे गो ये फायदे वात. सिंस ये MBA मज मे कोर तिमन फोन बहुत M.Com बह पार्टिसिपेट कर. तिमो अहन स पार्टिसिपेट कर, इट्स ओपन. तो पे मे MBA मज दोस्त तिमन वो मे इत द्रामुत बिजनेस प्लान कंपटीशन. तो तिमन अस कर पार्टिसिपेट भला बह दिन सोरे बन तुम रूजू मे सो को पार्टनर. तिमन चलो ठीक. So then I made a project on the unemployment in Kashmir. I gave a concept. In Kashmir there was not a single consultancy. I'm telling you, a consultancy asan magar not the mushrooming growth of consultancy we see today. At that time
कश्मीरी समझ में नहीं आ रही है.
अच्छा कश्मीरी समझ में नहीं आ रही है. Oh, okay. I would like to continue in English and Urdu. Then what happened in the 2011, I put up a project with the Mercy Corps. That was having some sort of a funding support of 75 lakh rupees was needed. So they were very much excited to see my project, and my project was shortlisted for funding purposes as well. So what happened after that? I said to them that I am a student. I don't want to get funds so that I will be accountable tomorrow, because I'm a student. I just wanted to see if my ideas in line with reality, if my solution is really practical. And when you have shortlisted my project, so I believe it's a very practical project to do. I was in the first or second semester of my post graduation. After coming out from the university, I had thought of taking my project again. मैंने बोला यार ऐसा मैंने एक project बनाया है तो इसी पे मैं काम करता हूँ. Then what happened? I started my office at Lal Chowk itself in the beginning. I did some good placements. मैंने काफी लोगों को क्या कहते हैं डिफरेंट इंडिया में भेजा, काफी लोगों को इंडिया से बाहर भेजा, पढ़ाई के मामले में, जॉब के मामले में, और किसी किसी को जर्मनी भी भेजा स्कॉलरशिप के मामले में. आई रिमेम्बर जिस बच्चे को मैंने सबसे पहले जर्मनी भेजा, उसको एक साइंटिस्ट ने रेफर किया था. यू माइट बी नोइंग मीर फैजल. He is a Kashmiri scientist based in Canada. He had an interactions with me. तो उसको बोला था यार ऐसे है वहाँ पे he can help you. So the student has got 59.5% marks in BTech in computer science. तो फिर मैंने बोला इसको यार it's very possible that you can go to Germany. I will take the responsibility. Though he paid me a good amount because he believed that it's a very challenging, क्योंकि 2 बार उसका rejection आ चुका था. Then what happened कि मैंने किसी और तरीके से LOR बनाया उसका, और जो भी उसका गैप था उसको जस्टिफाई किया, उसके इवेंट्स को स्टडी किया. So I put up another proposal to the university. So by the grace of God he went to the Germany finally. तो उसकी वजह से मेरा काफी इंस्पिरेशन भी हो गया यार, अगर हम किसी को भी यहाँ कितना भी पीछे हो आदमी, if we can have the right approach we can get him somewhere. तो दिन ब दिन I got more interested and more passionate about what I was doing, displacing people here and there. और काउंसलिंग भी मैं साथ साथ ही करता था. जो भी whosoever used to come my office, I used to counsel him, यार वो एग्जाम है, ये एग्जाम है, ये पढ़ो, वो करो. एंड एट दैट टाइम, टिल दैट टाइम आई बिलीव्ड कि सब लोग मेरी तरह ही है, सबको पता है क्या करना है, एंड आई एम मेयरली फैसिलिटेटिंग. पर ऑफिस में इतने एक्सपीरियंसेस हो गए मेरे बैड दैट आई वाज नोइंग दैट इवन पीपल डोंट नो अबाउट केएस, पीपल डोंट नो इवन अबाउट आईएएस, people do not know about so many opportunities. And finally I realized there is a huge क्या कहते हैं information gap in the world, and that's why a lot of people are suffering a lot. It's not because that we don't have jobs, we don't have opportunities. It is because that we don't have information, we don't have right guidance, mentorship. Then I realized the problem of other people as well on that note, on career. Then finally I thought यार अब कुछ बड़ा करते हैं, like I have to systematize the things because I wanted to reach out to everyone. मैंने बोला यार सबका काम मुझे करना है. Everybody has to be at least कम से कम कोई unemployed नहीं रहना चाहिए. Then what happened? I thought day and night कि यार मैं कैसे करूँगा, सबका काम मैं कैसे कर पाऊंगा. It's not possible practically, and I need a lot of resources to put up team वो वगैरह सारा. So finally I got up with an innovation. तो जिसको innovation एक invention मैंने करा, जिस invention की वजह से हम 100% level पे we can reach out to each and everyone, and we can ensure कि एक बच्चा भी क्या कहते हैं unemployed नहीं रहेगा, एक बच्चा भी misguided नहीं रहेगा, एक बच्चा भी information के बगैर नहीं रहेगा. And that kind of a process जो मैंने invent करा 2018 की बात मैं कर रहा हूँ, उसमें मैंने ये भी देखा कि अगर इसके बदले बच्चे को information ढूंढने की जरूरत नहीं है. A person has not to look for the opportunity. The opportunity will find out the right aspirant for this. तो वो एक मैंने टेक्नोलॉजी बनाई. बट उसके बाद आई हैड थॉट ऑफ कि यार इस टेक्नोलॉजी को अब एक इंक्यूबेशन सपोर्ट मिलना चाहिए. सो व्हाट हैपेंड, देन आई रीच्ड टू सेवरल इंस्टीट्यूशंस विद दैट प्रोजेक्ट और मॉडल व्हिच आई हैड मेड, क्योंकि वो मैं इंडिविजुअली नहीं कर सकता था बिकॉज लॉट ऑफ बिग डेटा वाज इन्वॉल्व्ड, लॉट ऑफ आई बिलीव सुपर कंप्यूटिंग वाज इन्वॉल्व्ड व्हाट आई वाज ट्राइंग टू डू. तो वो आइडिया बड़ा अच्छा लगा सबको, बिकॉज अब हम की एक डेवलपिंग कंट्री में रह रहे हैं, एंड एट द सेम टाइम वी आर लिविंग इन कश्मीर विच इज सो डेवलपिंग देन द रेस्ट ऑफ आई थिंक रेस्ट ऑफ द कंट्रीज, क्योंकि यहाँ का माहौल के रिलेटेड मतलब देयर इज लॉट ऑफ अनसर्टेनिटी. So what happened finally, everybody was appreciating the idea and getting fascinated with what I was saying, but finally nobody could support that fully so that we can fully develop that into a full-fledged platform. But I didn't give up my struggle. मैं तो अपना बिजनेस करता रहता था, ये काउंसलिंग में करता रहता था, जैसा मेरा चलता था. But this became my another mission to do in my life. और ये क्या हुआ फिर, what happened after that, I went to नीति आयोग, I had some deliberations with them. तो everything continued. तो बीच में फिर 370 हो गया, फिर उसके बाद कोरोना हो गया, everything got delayed again. So finally what happened, 2020 में मैंने सितंबर से दोबारा काम स्टार्ट, जब से वो थोड़ा खुलना शुरू हो गया, तो आई स्टार्टेड वर्किंग अगेन ऑन द प्रोजेक्ट। एंड फाइनली आई थॉट दैट आई शुड नाउ डिस्कस इट विद द गवर्नर वी हैव, जो हमारे पास अभी है। और वो प्रोजेक्ट भी काफी डेवलप हो गया था बाय दैट टाइम, और इसमें हमने मेरे को काफी एजेंसीज, काफी पर्सनल कैपेसिटीज में भी काफी लोगों ने हेल्प किया। लाइक आई वुड मतलब काफी लोगों ने, प्राइमरीली प्रोफेसर निसार अली, हु इज वन ऑफ द नोटेड इकोनॉमिस्ट ऑफ J&K. So finally, I had a meeting with LG, Honorable LG at NIT Srinagar. So by the grace of God and efforts भी मैंने लगाए थे थोड़े बहुत, तो he was super impressed with the project and finally passed the directions to the relevant departments कि भैया जितना भी support, चाहे financial हो, administrative हो, जो भी इसमें करना है, make it happen. And this project will be done on an pilot basis in the UT. UT में pilot basis में करेंगे. And if at all we have the satisfactory results, this project will be taken to the different parts of the country. So this is the current status of my work. I work in only, I have my venture is Move Beyond. I call it as a career counseling school. This is how I have developed. मैंने आपको सारा बता दिया कि कहाँ से क्या आया था, मैं क्या किया मैंने, तो क्या कहते हैं, तो finally मैं कहाँ पे हूँ और क्या करना चाहता हूँ. And this is the entire story of mine. And beyond this, I would like to add 2 things, or 3-4 things I would like to tell you in cracks. See, in life we have a choice. There is choice everywhere. But भैया जहाँ पे career की बात है, there is no choice. You have to earn. You have to be financially successful. देखिए, आप अच्छे हैं या बुरे हैं, उसमें choice है आपके पास. But when it comes to your career, you have absolutely no choice. You have a choice to sleep, to eat less food or more food. But you don't have choice when it comes to money. You have to have your money. उसके बगैर आप क्या करेंगे? मैं आपको एक प्लेन एडवाइस बताता हूँ, एडवाइस भी नहीं, एक प्लेन इन्फॉर्मेशन बताता हूँ, एंड रियलाइज दिस थिंग वेरी डीपली. और जो पैसा आप अभी बना सकते हैं ना अपनी ग्रेजुएशन के टाइम, अपने 10th 12th 8th में, जैसे आप जो आप अभी मनी जनरेशन कर सकते हैं, वो आप कभी नहीं कर सकते हैं लाइफ में. व्हाट आई मीन बाय मनी जनरेशन इज दैट इट्स नॉट दैट यू हैव टू गो आउट एंड अर्न मनी. द पॉइंट इज, जो आप, व्हाट विल अट्रैक्ट मनी टू यू. कोई नहीं बोलता सड़क पे यार मुझे पैसे दो, मुझे पैसे दो. या तो कोई सर्विस दे रहा है, या कोई मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कोई चीज बेच रहा है, या कोई आदमी उस बेची हुई चीज को डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है. सो देयर आर लिमिटेड ऑप्शंस, लाइक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग है, सर्विस हो गया, एग्रीकल्चर हो गया और ट्रेड हो गया. दीज आर द 3-4 थिंग्स. बट यू हैव टू बी सो केपेबल कि आप इनमें से कोई काम कर पाओ, या एटलीस्ट द गवर्नमेंट जॉब, एटलीस्ट, बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट जॉब भी सबको नहीं मिलती है. इट नीड्स अ लॉट ऑफ प्रिपरेशन टुडे बिकॉज द कॉम्पिटिशन इज सो हाई competition. So I would tell you here, देखिए जो ये इनोवेशन का इस्लामिया कॉलेज ने जो ये गैदरिंग रखी थी इस पे, so it's much appreciated, but at the same time it was intent. इसका ऑब्जेक्टिव यही था कि बच्चे अवेयर हो, सेंसिटाइज हो how things move, and particularly in the context of innovation. अब इनोवेशन का क्या मसला है, कोई जॉब करेगा, कोई मामूली सा कोई काम करेगा, या कोई कंट्रोल सी कंट्रोल वी कॉन्सेप्ट भी चलाएगा, द वे पीपल डू. बट इनोवेशन का ये है, अगर आपके पास कोई ऐसा इनोवेशन है जिससे काफी लोग, मतलब एक आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स तरीका है, दैट कैन फेच यू बिलियंस इन नो टाइम. द एग्जाम्पल ऑफ क्लब हाउस हम कोई नहीं जानता था हम में से क्लब हाउस, बट 3 महीने में वो दैट बिकम ए $1 billion ऐप 3 महीने में. So this is how you have to be. See, the first and the foremost part of your life is career, I believe. और career के there are 4 or 5 options जिससे आप अपना career put up कर सकते हैं. And you have to realize it at a very beginning, at a very early stage कि मुझे करना क्या चाहिए. और इसमें आपको काफी टाइम देना पड़ेगा खुद को समझने में, मार्केट को समझने में, अपनी कंट्री को समझने में, लोगों को समझने में. देन यू कैन थिंक ऑफ यार मुझे क्या करना चाहिए, खुद को समझने में, अपना एप्टीट्यूड, अपने रिसोर्सेज क्या है मेरे पास, एंड यू शुड टेक अ डिसीजन, एंड देन यू शुड डिवोट योरसेल्फ टू दैट डिसीजन. चाहे वो कुछ भी हो, IAS करना है, एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप करना है, इनोवेशन करना है, फिर उस इनोवेशन को सेल करना है, या इवन आपको सोशल वर्क करना है. मे बी आपके पास कोई फाइनेंशियल ये नहीं है, आपको मे बी गॉड हैज गिवन यू ऑलरेडी अ लॉट, यू मे नॉट बी इन नीड ऑफ रिसोर्सेज, यू हैव अ लॉट ऑफ रिसोर्सेज एट योर डिस्पोजल. इवन द सोशल वर्क, दैट आल्सो नीड्स टू बी थॉट ऑफ, दैट आल्सो नीड्स टू बी आइडेंटिफाइड कि मैं क्या करूं, बिकॉज एवरीथिंग इज ओशन इन दिस वर्ल्ड, नथिंग हैज लिमिट इन दिस वर्ल्ड. आप कोई भी चीज ले लो. सो द पॉइंट इज टेक अ डिसीजन एट अ वेरी अर्ली स्टेज, डिवोट योरसेल्फ टू दैट. और आप देखिए, द मोमेंट यू टेक अ डिसीजन, कोई भी डिसीजन, डोंट वरी फॉर कि यार ये मुझे कौन बताएगा, रिसोर्सेज कहाँ से आएगी. द मोमेंट यू वर्क, जितना भी आपके पास रिसोर्स है अपना छोटा मोटा, अब थोड़ा भी कुछ स्टार्ट करो अपनी लेवल पे, चाहे स्टडी स्टार्ट करो, पढ़ना स्टार्ट करो, प्रिपरेशन स्टार्ट करो, यू विल ऑटोमेटिकली गेट पीपल अराउंड यू हु विल हेल्प यू इन दैट, थोड़ा थोड़ा करके. नथिंग कम्स इन एट फर्स्ट, सब कुछ पहले नहीं मिलता, थोड़ी थोड़ी चीजें आ जाती है, एंड देन फाइनली यू रियलाइज कि यार मेरा इनिशिएटिव इज व्हाट एक्चुअली वाज नीडेड. तो बाकी ऊपर वाला, ही इज गॉड इज इनफ टू हेल्प मी, एंड देयर आर पीपल अराउंड हु सी समबडी इज वर्किंग ऑन सम प्रोजेक्ट, दे ऑफर help and support. The thing is only that you have to take an initiative. This is what I did. I say I have, I sit with, these days I sit with, I have had close interactions, lot of chief ministers हमारे state के, कम से कम 10-20 कमिश्नर्स के साथ मैंने मीटिंग्स की होंगी, डिस्कशंस की होंगी, या बड़े एंटरप्रेन्योर्स के साथ. एक बारी विजय थडानी आए थे हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी, ही इज द कॉन्फेडरेशन ऑफ इंडियन इंडस्ट्रीज के वो चेयरमैन थे नॉर्थ के, एंड ही इज द ओनर ऑफ NIIT ब्रांड के. सो यू सिट विद ग्रेट पीपल, यू गेट कनेक्टेड टू द होल ऑफ इकोसिस्टम जो भी आपके अराउंड है, बट इट्स ओनली व्हेन यू टेक योर इनिशिएटिव, जब आप कोई स्टार्ट करेंगे, एंड इट्स मैंडेटरी फॉर यू गाइस टू स्टार्ट एनीथिंग, मे बी एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप, मे बी एनीथिंग रिलेटेड टू योर करियर. So that is it. Thank you students. And any questions please?
Thank you so much, Inayat, for actually inspiring our students to start. Yes, they have to move beyond. They have to start. They have to think of some economic activity, because, like you rightly said, there is no option to earning. There is no option to be into something, because the government doesn't